College is supposed to be about opportunity, growth, and freedom. But for many students, it's also the first time they're truly on their own. And that loneliness can invite things far worse than homesickness. Across campuses, in dorm rooms, libraries, lecture halls, and the spaces in between, students whisper stories. Stories that aren't part of any campus tour. Stories that make you question whether you're ever really safe. Here are 3 new true college horror stories that will make you think twice about walking alone at night, or even trusting the silence of your dorm. Ride-sharing apps have become second nature for most college students. Whether it's getting home from a party, a late-night study session, or just avoiding the long walk across campus, they're supposed to make life easier, safer. But sometimes, the very thing you trust to get you home can be the thing that makes sure you never get there. It was close to midnight when Emily, a sophomore at her university, finished studying in the campus library. The night had grown unusually cold, and the walk back to her dorm stretched across several dark blocks. She decided it would be safer to order a rideshare. She opened the app, saw a driver nearby, and within minutes, a dark gray sedan pulled up to the curb. The driver was a middle-aged man with a calm smile. "Emily?" he asked, leaning over slightly. She nodded, relieved to see her name on his phone screen. She climbed into the back seat, setting her heavy backpack on the floor. At first, the ride felt normal. The man asked her how her night had been, whether she was studying hard, if she lived on campus. His tone was polite, maybe too polite. Emily tried to keep her answers short, staring out the window to avoid further conversation. But after a few minutes, she realized something strange. The scenery wasn't changing. They passed the same dimly lit convenience store, the same broken street lamp, the same graffiti-smeared brick wall. Her stomach tightened. She glanced at her phone's GPS. They weren't heading toward her dorm. Instead, they were circling the same 4-block stretch. Emily leaned forward slightly. I think you missed the turn," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. The driver didn't look back. His hands remained firm on the steering wheel. After a long pause, he spoke softly. "I didn't miss it. I'm waiting for the others." The words didn't make sense at first. She froze, staring at the back of his head, watching the way his neck tensed as he said it. "The others?" she repeated. No reply. Her chest tightened as dread began to set in. She unlocked her phone and checked the app again. The ride details were gone. No driver's name, no license plate number, no trip information, just a blank screen. Emily's breathing quickened. She considered opening the door and bolting, but the car was still moving. She tried to casually reach for her backpack on the floor, hoping to grab her pepper spray. But the driver spoke again, his voice low and almost amused. "Don't bother. You'll scare them when they arrive." That was it. Her fight or flight instinct exploded. The next red light they hit, she didn't think twice. She yanked the door handle and threw herself out of the car, nearly stumbling into the street. Horns blared, headlights flashed, and she sprinted onto the sidewalk, not daring to look back. She ran until her lungs burned. Finally, she ducked into a 24-hour diner near campus, collapsing into a booth. The waitress hurried over, asking if she was okay. Emily tried to explain, pointing out the window, but the street outside was empty. Shaking, she opened the app again. This time, it showed no ride had ever been recorded. Her trip history ended at 8:43 p.m., hours before she even left the library. Over the next few days, she tried to convince herself she had imagined it. Maybe she got into the wrong car. Maybe the app glitched. But late at night, she'd wake with her phone buzzing beside her. notifications she didn't remember setting. One morning, she found a rideshare receipt in her email. No pickup location, no drop-off. Just one line under driver's notes. Sorry you couldn't stay. Next time, we'll wait for the others together. She deleted the app that day, but every so often, she swears she sees that same gray sedan idling at the edge of campus, headlights dim as if waiting. We rely on technology to make us feel safe, to make things easier, to make sure we don't end up stranded in the middle of the night. But the truth is, the apps we trust with our lives can become the very thing that puts us in danger. Next time you order a ride, take a second look at the car that pulls up, because you might not be the only one in the back seat, and the driver may not be taking you home. Some stories end, but the fear doesn't. If you don't want to miss the next one, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell, because the scariest stories are the ones you don't see coming. Every college campus has its abandoned building, the one everyone whispers about but no one dares to enter. Students tell stories of suicide, failed renovations, even secret experiments that forced the administration to lock the doors forever. Most people laugh them off as urban legends, but sometimes legends turn out to be warnings. It started as a dare. 4 friends, Sarah, Jason, Maya, and Chris, were sitting in the dorm late one Friday night when the conversation turned toward the abandoned dormitory on the far side of campus. It had been sealed years ago, its windows boarded, its entrances chained shut. Everyone had heard rumors, strange lights at night, muffled footsteps, and shadows that flickered behind broken blinds. Chris, always the skeptic, smirked. It's just an empty building, probably filled with rats. I bet none of you have the guts to actually check it out. Jason immediately jumped in. What? And get caught by campus police? No thanks. But Sarah leaned forward, her voice low. What if we do? What if we actually go inside? Just once. No one has to know. By midnight, armed with flashlights and phones, they crept across campus. The old building loomed ahead, a crumbling relic with peeling paint and shattered windows. The chain on the side door was broken, as though someone else had forced it open recently. Inside, the air was damp and heavy with mildew. Their footsteps echoed on the cracked tiles. Graffiti lined the walls, some old and faded, some disturbingly fresh. Most of it was nonsense. Names, dates, crude drawings, but one phrase repeated over and over, scratched into paint and plaster alike. Don't go past the hallway. They exchanged uneasy looks. The deeper they went, the more wrong it felt. The temperature dropped. Their lights flickered, their phone batteries draining faster than they should have. Finally, they reached a stairwell leading down. Against their better judgment, they descended. At the bottom was a long corridor that hadn't been on any of the campus blueprints. The hallway stretched far, lined on both sides with locked dorm room doors, each door identical, each with tarnished numbers that made no sense. Some were missing digits, some were scratched out completely. The smell hit them then, a thick, rotten odor like spoiled meat. Maya gagged, covering her face. What the hell is this place? At the far end of the hall, a single door stood slightly ajar, faint light spilling out. They approached slowly, their footsteps echoing too loudly. When Jason pushed it open, the 4 of them froze. Inside was a perfectly preserved dorm room. A bed neatly made, a desk covered with books, a lamp casting dim yellow light. On the walls were photographs, dozens of them. Students smiling in front of familiar campus landmarks. Students at parties, in classrooms, at football games. but none of them recognized a single face. Sarah stepped closer. One photo made her stomach turn. It was of the four of them, sitting in their dorm room that very night, laughing just hours earlier. She dropped it, her hands trembling. "We need to go, now." They bolted back down the hall, but the corridor seemed to stretch farther than before. Doors rattled on either side, as though someone or something was trying to get out. The rotten smell grew stronger. The walls seemed to close in. Finally, they burst through the stairwell and out of the building, not stopping until they were back in the safety of their own dorm. None of them spoke about what they saw. Not that night, not the next day. But the morning after, when Sarah pulled up the campus directory to prove the building still existed, she found nothing. According to official records, the dorm had been demolished in 1983. She thought it was a mistake until she passed the lot where the building had stood. It was gone. Nothing remained but an empty patch of grass, as if the structure had never existed at all. There are places on every campus that students aren't supposed to go. Sealed doors, condemned buildings, locked rooms. They're easy to dismiss as safety hazards or forgotten spaces. But sometimes they're closed for a reason. And if you ever find yourself standing before a hallway that shouldn't be there, don't walk down it. Because even if you make it back, you'll never truly leave. Office hours are supposed to be a safe space, a chance for students to connect with their professors, ask questions, and get guidance outside of class. But what happens when the person behind that office door isn't supposed to be there? Sometimes sitting down for help can be the last mistake you ever make. It was a Tuesday evening when Mark, a junior in college, decided to visit his professor after class. He had been struggling with the material in his philosophy course, and despite his anxiety about talking one-on-one, he figured office hours were the only way to catch up before the midterm. The building was nearly empty by the time he arrived. The fluorescent lights in the hallway buzzed faintly, casting long, pale reflections on the floor. Most of the other office doors were shut, their windows dark. At the end of the hall, light spilled out from beneath one door, Professor Adams's office. Mark hesitated a moment, clutching his notebook, then knocked. Almost immediately, a voice came from inside. "Come in." Relieved, Mark opened the door. Professor Adams sat at his desk, smiling in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. The room looked normal. Books stacked high on shelves, papers scattered neatly across the desk, the familiar faint smell of chalk dust. "Ah, Mark," the professor said. "I was wondering when you'd stop by." They began to talk. At first, the conversation seemed normal, about the upcoming exam, about the chapters Mark was struggling with. But something felt off. The professor's smile never faded. His gaze was too steady, his voice just a little too low, like a recording playing back slightly warped. Mark tried to ignore it. He nodded, scribbling notes as Adams explained. Then, the professor leaned forward, his grin stretching wider. "You know you're not supposed to be here." The words hung heavy in the air. Mark froze. His pen slipped from his fingers. "What do you mean?" he asked. The professor didn't answer. He just kept smiling, eyes locked onto Mark's with an intensity that made his skin crawl. For the first time, Mark noticed something else. The professor's reflection in the window didn't match his movements. His lips weren't moving when he spoke. Mark stood up quickly, muttering an excuse, and rushed out of the office. The hallway felt longer than before, the buzzing lights harsher, his footsteps echoing far too loudly. He didn't look back until he was outside the building. When he finally glanced up at the window of Adams's office, the light had gone out. The next morning, Mark told his friend what had happened. His friend frowned, then laughed nervously. That's impossible. Didn't you hear? Professor Adams died in a car accident last night. Around 6 p.m., Mark's stomach dropped. That was exactly when he had been sitting in Adams's office, listening to him speak. Over the next few days, Mark avoided that part of campus. But every so often, when he passed the philosophy building, he'd swear he heard a faint voice whispering through the vents, "Come in." And late at night, when he sat alone in his dorm, his phone would buzz with unknown numbers, leaving voicemails that lasted only a few seconds. Static, followed by that same low voice. "You know you're not supposed to be here." We think of professors as guides, mentors, people who help us navigate the chaos of college. But sometimes, the voice guiding you isn't meant for you at all. So if you ever find yourself at the door of an empty office and you hear someone say, "Come in," ask yourself, are you really stepping into office hours? Or into something else entirely? College is supposed to be about learning, friendships, and growing up. But for some, it's where nightmares live. And sometimes, where they never leave. If these stories kept you looking over your shoulder, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more true horror stories 3 times a week. And let me know in the comments, which of these college stories disturbed you the most? Because remember, the scariest stories are always the ones that could happen to you